Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are traveling, but, we aren't just going on a vacation. We are stepping into what feels like a bit of a paradox. Imagine a place that looks like the absolute peak of a tropical paradise. I'm talking volcanoes that pierce the clouds, rainforests that look like movie sets from, I don't know, the Cretaceous period.
Right, like something out of Jurassic Park.
Exactly. And beaches with sand so white it actually hurts your eyes without sunglasses.
Yeah.
But, and there is a massive but here, there's a catch.
There is always a catch. And in this case, the catch is, well, it's fascinating.
It really is. Because this place operates with the, let's say, bureaucratic complexity of a European government office.
Chuckles. That's one way to put it.
And the logistical hurdles of a remote island that, frankly, doesn't really seem to care if you visit or not.
It's a complete collision of expectations versus reality. We're looking at a massive stack of sources here regarding travel to Guadeloupe in the year 2026. And the central question that's really just jumping out of this material is this destination the Hawaii of the Atlantic at, 60% of the cost?
Which sounds amazing.
Or is it a logistical nightmare just waiting to happen?
That is the core tension. We have all seen the Instagram drone shots, right? The glowing turquoise water, the waterfalls. It looks effortless.
Totally effortless, the perfect escape.
But the source material we have today is different. It is not a glossy brochure. It's based on on-the-ground travel data, forum discussions, economic reports from early 2026. I mean, it moves beyond the filters and really dissects the economics, the failing infrastructure, and what the sources are calling the vibe shift of this specific territory.
Which is exactly what we need, because the travel landscape has shifted so much. By 2026, the sources are all suggesting that travelers are craving something.
Raw, authentic.
Exactly. The polished, all-inclusive resort experience where you never leave the gate. It just feels a bit stale to the modern traveler. But Guadeloupe, it's raw, all right, but it demands a strategy. The sources are crystal clear on this. This destination doesn't cater to the tourist. It tolerates them.
I love that line. It tolerates them. It sets the stakes immediately. So let's start with the hook that's in our outline, the paradox of paradise. And specifically, this metaphor that keeps popping up over and over again, the butterfly.
It's the defining visual. If you look at a map of the Caribbean, specifically the Lesser Antilles, you'll see Guadeloupe isn't one round island. It's shaped very distinctly like a butterfly with its wings spread open.
Okay.
And this isn't just some poetic description. It's geological. It's fundamental. The butterfly is actually two distinct land masses, two different countries almost glued together by a mangrove swamp.
A swamp, not like a bridge or an isthmus.
Yeah.
A swamp.
A swamp. It's called the Rivière Salée, the Salt River. It's this narrow channel of seawater and mangroves that physically separates the two main islands. And understanding this anatomy is, it's the only way to survive the trip. You absolutely cannot treat this place as a single cohesive unit.
Okay, so let's break down the wings then. This feels like the first big strategic choice because the sources describe them as being, well, polar opposites. This is our first segment, geography as destiny.
Right. On the left wing, you have Basse-Terre. The sources consistently describe this place as Jurassic Park.
Which implies, what? We're talking dinosaurs? Should I pack running shoes?
No dinosaurs, thankfully, but everything else fits the bill. It is volcanic. It is dominated by the active volcano, La Soufrière, which is constantly puffing out steam. It's all rainforests, massive, massive waterfalls, and hiking trails that are described in the source material very specifically as slippery clay.
Slippery clay. Sounds messy.
It's wild, it's vertical, it's dark green, and it's wet. It rains there almost every single day in the afternoon, like clockwork. That's the adventure side.
Okay, so that's the rugged, sweaty adventure wing. And on the right wing?
You have Grande-Terre. And the source describes this as Florida.
Florida. Wow, that's a contrast.
A complete contrast. It's a limestone plateau. It is flat. The clouds from the volcano on the other wing don't get trapped there, so it's much, much drier. This is where you find the blindingly white sand beaches, the calm turquoise water, the resorts, the nightlife, all of that.
So Jurassic Park on the left, Florida on the right. That sounds like the perfect vacation combo. You get the rugged adventure and the beach relaxation all in one plane ticket.
In theory, yes. On paper, it sounds perfect. But here's where the butterfly effect, if you will, kicks in. To get from the left wing to the right wing, you have to cross that connector, the Rivière Salée.
The swamp.
The swamp. And because of the geography, there are only two bridges that cross that swamp for the entire island.
Wait, two bridges for the entire population.
And all the tourists. Precisely. And that leads to the traffic. The source material is brutally, brutally honest about this. It calls the traffic Los Angeles levels of bad.
Oh, wow. Los Angeles levels is not what you want to hear when you are packing swim trunks and imagining a breezy, top-down drive along the coast.
No, it's the exact opposite of that. It dictates your entire schedule. The data identifies these very specific no-go times. If you are trying to cross between the two wings, say you're staying on the beach side in Grande-Terre, but you want to go hike the volcano in Basse-Terre.
The classic plan.
Right. If you get in your car and try to leave between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m., you are dead in the water. You will not move.
And the evening rush, I assume, is just as bad?
Just as bad. Between 4:00 p.m. and 6:30 p.m., if you are on the road, then you are not on vacation. You are just sitting in a parking lot on a highway surrounded by commuters burning incredibly expensive gas, which we'll get to later.
That is a serious reality check. You picture yourself waking up at a beautiful beach resort in Grande-Terre, you're having a leisurely coffee on the balcony, and you're thinking, hey, I'll just pop over to the volcano for a quick morning hike.
And you can't. You just can't. Not unless you leave at 5 a.m. before the whole island wakes up. The geography dictates the schedule. As one of the sources puts it, and I think this is so important, you are choosing between sitting in a highway parking lot versus being on vacation. That is the choice you make every single day based on your logistics. If you don't respect the geography will absolutely ruin your trip.
Okay, so the physical landscape is established. It's beautiful, but it's logistically unforgiving. But there's another landscape we need to navigate, and that's the cultural one. This brings us to segment 2, the cultural vibe shift.
And this is so critical for American travelers, or really any English-speaking travelers, to understand. We have to remember the political status. Guadeloupe is an overseas region of France. It is not a colony. It is fully integrated.
So it's not just French-influenced, like, say, St. Lucia or Dominica might have historical traces of. It is France.
Correct. The laws are French, the currency is the euro, the police are French gendarmes. When you land there, you have entered the European Union. And that brings us to the language barrier. In places like Aruba or the Bahamas or even Punta Cana, English is the default setting for tourism. The infrastructure is built to bend towards the American tourist.
Right. They want your dollars.
Exactly. The sources here are very clear. In Guadeloupe, the expectation is French, period.
They mentioned this thing called the bonjour rule.
It is non-negotiable. The source notes that if you walk up to someone, a shopkeeper, a bus driver, anyone, and you immediately start speaking English, you will get what they call a cold shoulder.
Just for not saying hello first.
Just for not saying bonjour. It seems like such a small thing.
It does.
But it's massive. It is the social lubricant. It's acknowledging their humanity before you ask for a service. If you skip the bonjour, you are seen as rude, as an entitled tourist. If you say it, even with a terrible accent, the door's open. People will switch to broken English, they'll use their hand, they'll try to help you. But you have to make that first gesture.
That's so interesting because the source material mentions that in 2026, there has been this real increase in direct flights. You've got JetBlue, you've got Air France with new connections via Miami and Montreal. So there are more North American tourists arriving than ever before, but the culture hasn't pivoted to cater to them at all.
And neither has the attitude. This goes back to that quote. The source says Guadeloupe tolerates tourists. It doesn't court them.
Let's unpack that distinction. Tolerates. Yeah. That sounds almost hostile.
It's not hostile. It's just indifferent. I think that's a better word. It means the service culture is completely different from what Americans are used to. It is not subservient.
Okay, give me an example.
Okay, the source gives a great example regarding dining. Waiters will not refill your iced tea every 4 minutes. They are not hovering over your table. They aren't checking on you constantly to earn a bigger tip because tipping culture is different there anyway.
So for some people, that sounds refreshing, like leave me alone, let me eat. For others, that's going to sound like terrible service.
It all depends on your expectations. If you want that customer is king model where you are constantly being pampered and attended to, you will be deeply disappointed. It is a French dining experience, which implies a certain professional distance and autonomy. The waiter is a professional doing a job, not a servant trying to please you.
Speaking of authenticity, there's a section here on the gritty reality versus the lived-in feel. They talk specifically about Le Gossier, which is the main tourist hub on the Grande-Terre side, the Florida side.
Right. Le Gossier is where most of the hotels and resorts are, and the source describes it as feeling a bit gritty, flickering streetlights, loud noise at night, a lot of concrete buildings that have maybe seen better days. It's not the sanitized, gated community version of the Caribbean that you might find in, say, parts of Jamaica or the Bahamas.
But they also contrast that with the lived-in feel. It's not all negative.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's a trade-off. In that same gritty space, you have vibrant night markets, you have zouk music blasting from car stereos, you have smoke rising from BBQ grills set up on the side of the road selling incredible food. It feels like real life is happening all around you. It's not resort pretty, but it has a pulse. And for the traveler in 2026 who is perhaps trying to escape the AI-generated perfection of their social media feed, that reality might be the entire selling point.
That's a great point. Okay, let's move on to the really practical stuff. Segment 3, the logistics of survival. Because if the traffic doesn't get you, the rental car counter just might.
The rental car combat sport, as the source calls it, this is a major, major pain point for a lot of visitors.
First off, you land at Pointe-à-Pitre Airport, PTP. What's the scene like?
It's a modern airport, generally efficient, but the sensory details in the source are vivid. You step off the plane and you're hit with this wall of humidity. It smells of jet fuel and damp earth. But the real challenge is the shuttle system. The rental car lots aren't right there at the terminal. You have to take a shuttle.
Okay, that's pretty standard.
It is, but apparently the drivers are aggressive, the lines are chaotic, and it's not always clear which shuttle goes to which company. It's your first test of patience.
And once you finally get to the counter, there's a very specific trap waiting for you regarding the type of car.
The manual transmission default, this is very, very European. The standard compact car that you book online for the cheapest rate is going to be a manual Fiat 500 or something similar. If you cannot drive a stick shift, you are in serious trouble.
And you can't just, upgrade on the spot, say, oh, sorry, I made a mistake, I need an automatic.
In 2026, with the influx of tourists we just mentioned, the automatic cars are sold out months in advance. The source explicitly warns, and we need to bold this for everyone listening, automatic cars require booking 3 to 4 months out and paying a significant premium. If you just show up expecting to get an automatic, you might not get a car at all.
Wow. So you could be stranded at the airport.
Or you're getting a crash course in driving a manual on hilly, unfamiliar roads. Which brings us to the next point.
Right, driving that car.
The roads themselves are actually good. They're EU standard, well paved for the most part. But the drivers are described as very aggressive. The source mentions roundabout risks, people don't yield properly, and these deep concrete ditches on the sides of the road to handle the tropical rain. You make one mistake, you're not just on the shoulder, you're in a ditch. It's not a leisurely Sunday drive.
And speaking of Sundays, that brings us to another logistical hurdle. The Sunday shutdown.
This catches so many Americans off guard. We are completely used to a 247 convenience culture. You can get anything, anytime. In Guadeloupe, on Sunday afternoon, everything closes. I mean, everything. Grocery stores, pharmacies, even a lot of gas stations. The island just stops.
The source material mentions the risk of dehydration. That sounds a bit extreme.
It's a literal risk. Imagine this. You fly in on a Saturday night, you're tired, you go straight to your rental, you wake up Sunday morning and think, okay, I'll go get some water and food. And you can't. The supermarket is closed. If you didn't stock up on Saturday morning, you could be stuck in your accommodation on a hot day with nothing to eat or drink until Monday. It forces you to plan ahead.
Wow. Okay, that's a serious tip. But the biggest infrastructure failure mentioned in these notes, the one that gets the most ink, is something called tour d'eau.
This is, and I'm not exaggerating, the most critical piece of advice in this entire deep dive. Tour d'eau literally translates to water turns, but what it means is rolling water cuts.
Rolling water cuts. In a tropical paradise that is technically part of the European Union. How is that possible?
It is. The water infrastructure on the island is in crisis. It's old, it's leaky. So the government rations water by shutting it off to different districts on a rotating schedule. And these cuts can last anywhere from 12 to 24 hours.
12 to 24 hours.
A full day. Now imagine you've just come back from a hike in that Jurassic Park rainforest. You are covered in mud, you're drenched in sweat, you've got bug spray all over you. You go to your rental, you turn the handle for the shower, and nothing. Just a dry hiss from the pipes.
That is vacation-ruining nightmare. That is just awful. So what is the solution? There has to be a way around this.
There is. You have to ask your host one specific question before you book any accommodation, especially if you are using Airbnb, VRBO, or any private rental. The question is, do you have a citern?
A citern, what is that?
It's a buffer water tank, a private reservoir for the house. The way it works is the citern fills up with water from the city lines when the water is on. Then, when the city cuts the water supply, the house's plumbing automatically switches to pull from the tank. You won't even notice the difference. You'll have showers, you can flush the toilet, you're fine.
And if they say no? As
Yeah.
they say, they don't have a Saturn.
The source material is unequivocal. It says, do not book. It is that simple. Do not risk your basic hygiene and comfort on a vacation you've paid thousands for. Find another place.
Okay, let's talk about the money. That's always a huge factor. Segment 4, the economics of the trip. With 2026 pricing, we are dealing with the euro.
Right, and the exchange rate is approximately 1.10 US dollars to 1 euro, so you're losing about 10% right off the top. The dollar is slightly weaker.
So is it a budget destination?
Yeah.
A luxury one? Where does it fall?
It's complicated. It's not one thing. It is definitely cheaper than a place like St. Bart's, which is just astronomically expensive. But it is more expensive than the big all-inclusive destinations like Mexico or the Dominican Republic. It sits in this kind of awkward but interesting middle ground.
Let's look at accommodation first. The source highlights something called a JITE, G-I-T-E.
The JITE is the absolute winner here. It's the key to making the trip affordable. These are basically bungalows or small cottages on private property. Sometimes the owner lives in the main house nearby. The value proposition is just incredible compared to hotels.
What kind of prices are we talking about?
You can get a simple studio Yigit for roughly 80 euros a night, and for about 150 euros, you can often get a beautiful one-bedroom bungalow with its own private plunge pool.
150 euros for a private pool. That sounds very reasonable.
It is. Compare that to the hotels or the big luxury villas, which the sources say start at 600 euros a night and go way, way up from there. If you want value, you go for the JITE, you get a kitchen, you get private tea, and you get to live a bit more like a local.
And having a kitchen is huge because it helps you navigate what the sources call the food dichotomy. It seems like eating out is a tale of two extremes.
It's a complete dichotomy. This is fascinating. On one hand, you have the proper sit-down restaurants, the table d'hôte. These have Paris prices. We're talking 30 euro entrees. A dinner for two with a glass of wine is going to hit 100 euros very easily.
Okay, so that's not sustainable for a whole trip. But on the other hand,
You have the street food. This is the budget hack. And specifically, you have the boquete.
I am obsessed with the description of the boquete in these notes. Tell me about it.
It's incredible. It's a piece of dough, kind of like a fluffy Johnny cake that's deep fried so it puffs up like a pillow. Then they slice it open and stuff it with whatever you want. Salt fish, shredded chicken, sausage, egg, cheese. And the source notes, with what I'm sure is only slight exaggeration, that it is the size of a human head.
The size of a human head.
Mm.
For how much?
Yeah. 5 to 7 euros. So you can have a massive, delicious, filling meal for the price of a coffee in some places. There's also the agoulou, which is their version of a loaded burger. Same price range. You can absolutely feed yourself for next to nothing if you stick to the food trucks and street stalls.
But if you want to cook in that guite kitchen to save money, you have to buy groceries. And that's a trap.
That's where you lose money again. Almost everything in the supermarkets is imported from mainland France, so that box of cereal, that block of cheese, that jar of jam, expect to pay about 30% more than you would in a supermarket in Paris. It's expensive.
However, there is one liquid that is, and I quote, cheaper than water.
That would be rum, specifically rum agricole, the local high-proof stuff. The sources say you can get a liter of 50 degree, that's 100 proof agricultural rum for about 9 euros.
9 euros for a liter.
9 euros. It's literally cheaper to make yourself a Thai punch than to buy a big bottle of Evian water.
That explains a lot about the local vibe, I think.
It certainly contributes to that lived-in feel we were talking about.
Okay, last economic point. Transportation costs. We mentioned the rental cars are pricey, 40 euros a day for a manual, up to 80 for an automatic. But the gas is also a major factor.
The gas is government regulated, which is interesting. The price is exactly the same at every single gas station on the island, down to the cent. But it is high. The 2026 price is around 2.0 euros per liter.
Okay, do the math for me. What is that in American terms?
That is roughly 8.50 US dollars per gallon.
$8.50 a gallon. So if you are stuck in that LA levels of bad traffic jam we talked about, you were just sitting there burning $8.50 a gallon gas.
Exactly. Which is why strategic planning is not optional. It is mandatory. You cannot just show up and win it.
Which leads us perfectly into segment 5, because the source identifies trap #1,
Yeah.
the base camp error.
This is the single biggest mistake people make. They look at the map, they think, oh, it's a small island, and they book one hotel in Lagosier on the beachside for the whole week.
And why is that such a critical error?
Because of the traffic. We keep coming back to it. If you base yourself in Lagosier on Grande-Terre, the Florida wing, and you want to do any of the cool hikes or see the waterfalls in Basse-Terre, the Jurassic Park wing, you are committing to a minimum of 3 to 4 hours of driving every single day.
So you spend half your vacation in the car.
You're spending your precious vacation time and your expensive gas staring at the bumper of the car in front of you. It's a total waste.
So the fix, according to the sources, is the split stay.
Yes. You have to think of it as two separate vacations. You book 3 or 4 nights on Grande-Terre for the beaches and the nightlife. Then you pack up your stuff, you check out, and you move base. You book another 3 or 4 nights in a gîte on Basse-Terre, maybe near the volcano or a town like Deschet. It minimizes the driving, and it maximizes your experience of each unique side of the island.
That makes so much sense. And what about timing? When should we actually go to execute this perfect split stay plan?
The timing is also key. First, what to avoid. Avoid September. The hurricane risk is at its absolute peak, and a lot of restaurants and tour operators just close for the entire month.
Okay, so September is out. What's high season?
High season is what you'd expect. December through April, that's the dry season. The weather is perfect, cooler nights, less rain, but it's also the most expensive and the most crowded.
So the source calls the shoulder season the real sweet spot.
May and June. This is the window for the smart traveler. The prices drop by as much as 30%. The big crowds from the winter season have left. The hurricane season hasn't really peaked yet. You might just get some afternoon showers. It's the best combination of value and good weather.
Okay, this is all incredibly practical. Let's get into the more, I guess, emotional side of the trip, the highs and the lows. Segment 6, what are the worth it moments that make all this hassle pay off?
The sources highlight a few absolute gems. First, a day trip to Basse-Terre. This is a catamaran trip out to a pair of small, uninhabited islands that are a nature reserve.
What's the experience like?
It's the picture-perfect Caribbean dream. You're swimming in crystal-clear water with lemon sharks, the harmless kind, and sea turtles. The iguanas on the island are huge and just wander around.
And the food, I assume, is part of the package.
Of course. Fresh grilled mahi-mahi on the beach, served with tea punch. It is, by all accounts, an absolutely sublime day that makes you forget every single traffic jam.
Okay, what else? There's the Jardin Botanique in Deschets.
Yes, the
Yeah.
Botanical Garden. This was a former estate of a famous French comedian named Coluche. It's just an absolutely stunning place. Flamingos, colorful parrots, huge banyan trees. It's incredibly well maintained and just a beautiful, peaceful way to spend an afternoon.
And the sunset at a beach called Grande-Terre.
This one is on the Basse-Terre side, near Deschets. The source describes the light there during golden hour as prehistoric. Because the beach is backed by this huge, lush, jungle-covered mountain, the light hits it in a way that just feels ancient and wild. It's one of those moments of awe that makes the whole trip worth it.
But we have to be honest about the disappointments, too. And the source warns, in big capital letters, about sargassum.
This is a major, major issue across the Caribbean now, and Guadeloupe gets hit hard. It's these huge floating mats of brown seaweed that wash up on the beaches, particularly on the Atlantic side of Grande-Terre.
And it's not just ugly, right? It's a real problem.
It's a huge problem. It smells like rotten eggs. That's the hydrogen sulfide gas it releases as it decomposes. It's a powerful, awful smell. And that same gas is corrosive. The sources say it can ruin the electronics in your rental car or even your phone if you expose to it for too long. It completely ruins the beach day.
And it's unpredictable where it'll show up.
It is, which is why checking the daily sargassum report online has become a mandatory part of the 2026 travel routine for the Caribbean. You have to plan your beach days around where the seaweed isn't.
Another disappointment listed is service speed. We touched on this.
We did, but it's worth re-emphasizing. Island time is real, but here it's combined with that French service culture. The sauce mentions one anecdote of waiting 2 hours for appetizers to arrive. It requires a fundamental mindset shift. If you are a person who is in a rush, you will be miserable. You have to embrace the slow pace.
And a quick safety check. We're painting a gritty picture. Is it actually safe?
Generally, yes. The sources agree that violent crime against tourists is rare, but the main city, Pointe-à-Pitre, is flagged at night as mugging sketchy. The advice is just to avoid it after dark.
So the real risks aren't crime. They seem to be more environmental or health-related.
Exactly. The big ones are dengue fever from mosquitoes, so bug spray is not optional, erratic driving, especially drunk driving, which is apparently very common on weekends, and ocean currents. Some of the beautiful wild beaches, especially around Le Moule, are known for having dangerous rip currents.
Okay, so we've covered Guadeloupe in exhaustive detail. But the source material also offers this really useful matrix of alternatives.
Hmm.
If Guadeloupe sounds a little too hard, a little too much work, where else should you go?
This is a great section. So if you like the idea of the French Caribbean, the food, the culture, but you want something more polished and easier, you go to Martinique.
Rival
The
Island.
rival island. The sources describe it as having better roads, being more manicured. It's Guadeloupe's more put-together older sister. You choose it for ease.
Okay, what if the French language barrier is the main deal breaker? You just need English.
Then you go to Barbados. It's English-speaking, it's generally flatter, and the sources say it has a better, more developed food culture. You choose Barbados for the easy logistics and no language barrier.
And what if you hear Jurassic Park and think, that's all I want? I just want the jungle. I don't even care about the white sand beaches.
Then you go to Dominica. It's even wilder than Basse-Terre. It's almost all jungle. It's for hardcore hiking.
Yeah.
You choose Dominica for pure, untamed nature.
But the source has an ultimate recommendation, a kind of combo itinerary for the pro traveler.
This is the pro move. This is how you do it if you have the time. It's a 10-day trip. You fly into Guadeloupe. You immediately go spend 4 days in Basse-Terre for the hiking, the volcano, the waterfalls. Get the hard work done first.
Okay.
Then, and this is the key, you take a ferry to Les Saintes.
Les Saintes. Tell me about those.
It's a small archipelago of tiny islands just south of Basse-Terre. There are almost no cars. Everyone gets around on electric golf carts or scooters. The source calls its bay the most beautiful bay in the Caribbean, maybe the world. You spend 3 days there in a totally relaxed, charming, car-free environment.
And then?
Then you take the ferry back to the main island for your last 3 days, which you spend on Grande-Terre. You do the white sand beaches, you enjoy the resorts, you have a nice dinner. You get the jungle, the exclusive island vibe, and the resort beach experience all in one trip with minimal traffic stress.
That sounds incredible. It's like a greatest hits tour.
Yeah.
So let's wrap all this up with a final verdict. After all this, who is Guadeloupe actually for in 2026?
The source is very, very specific here. First, who it's not for. The backpacker. Absolutely not. Public transport is too unreliable, and the food and hostels are too pricey.
The luxury traveler, the person used to the Four Seasons.
Maybe, but only if they're looking for eco-luxury and they're self-sufficient. If you want Ritz-Carlton-style anticipatory service, you will hate it. You will be deeply frustrated.
What about families with kids?
Conditional. The sources say the kids need to be 8+, old enough to handle the strenuous hikes. And a lot of the French restaurants are not particularly kid-friendly.
So who is the absolute target demographic? Who is this place perfect for?
The mid-range couple. The people who are adventurous, independent, and willing to work a bit for their vacation. The people who are happy to rent a gîte, who can drive a manual car, who will get excited about eating a €5 boët on the side of the road. People who can handle a bit of grit in exchange for a lot of raw, authentic beauty.
The philosophy of the destination, then, seems to be pretty clear. It's not a flop-and-drop vacation.
No, not at all. It is a drive, hike, sweat, eat destination. It rewards effort. It rewards planning.
And that leads to the final provocative thought from our source material, which I find really interesting. Why do we, as travelers, sometimes crave places that just tolerate us?
It's a great question. And perhaps in 2026, the lack of Americanized customer is always right service is exactly what makes a place like this feel like a real escape. We are so used to being catered to that being treated with a bit of indifference feels authentic. It reminds you that you're a visitor in someone else's home, not just a customer in a theme park.
A powerful thought. And one last, very practical reminder from the expert notes.
Book the car before you book the flight.
Words to live by. Thanks for listening to this deep dive into the Butterfly Island. Safe travels, and watch out for those roundabouts.